Here we've got a question which is almost identical to example 9, where we've got a quadratic, but we don't know the coefficient, and we've been given one of the roots of the quadratic, and we're asked to find out what the coefficients are. So I just wanted to summarise the two different ways that we've seen how we can solve a problem like this. So the first thing to note is that if we've got one root, say alpha, which is 3 minus 5i, we often use alpha and beta to label the roots. So this is a root. We know that because the complex conjugate is also going to be a root, we know that beta, which is the complex conjugate 3 plus 5i, is also a root. So we've got two methods to find out what the quadratic is. Method 1 would be to determine what the factors of the quadratic are. We know that z minus alpha and z minus beta are factors. So we know that the quadratic z squared plus bz plus c must be equal to the two factors multiplied together, because that's how you would get the quadratic from the two factors. And then you could sub in the roots that you've got, so z minus 3 minus 5i and z minus 3 plus 5i. And then you could do what we did in example 9 and expand the bracket. Method 2 would be to use the fact that we learnt at the end of the last video, and that fact is that if you times together the two factors, the two roots, you get the constant in the quadratic. So in this case, we know that alpha beta is equal to c, and we could just times alpha and beta together to find out what c is. And once you've expanded that, you'll get the value of c. And we've also seen at the end of last video that if you add together the two roots, you get minus b. So we could do alpha plus beta equals minus b. So to find out what minus b is, you could just do 3 minus 5i plus 3 plus 5i equals minus b, and then simplify that to try and find out what b is. So in this case, you'd get 6 equals minus b, so b equals minus 6, for example. Before you have a go at the exercise, it's important that you realise that these formulas in method 2 only work if it's got a z squared at the start. If you had 2z squared, then you'd have to do something slightly different. And actually, we're going to spend an entire chapter later on in the book looking at what happens when you've got a 2 in front of the z squared, for example.